Okay, we're just going to get right into it. The name. A quiet voice, one quiet voice, the quiet voice. How did that come about? Well, as you can tell, my voice is not a loud voice. It's not one that has the texture that carries far. It's not one that is I'm not a singer. I'm not necessarily a speaker. I'm just me. And I was raised in a family with 5 children. I'm in the middle. I'm sandwiched between 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And we were raised in an extraordinarily religious home. Now, yes, it was kind of like the Duggar type deal. My parents were big into Bill Gothard, Bob Gothard, no, Bill Gothard, and a bunch of these other guys, of course, the Dobsons and stuff, all of that, and they took it a step further, though. My mother, for her own self, took that religious dogma and just stepped up a little bit, just in her mind, to help protect herself and to protect us. So it was more crazy than normal. And for the record, she still travels the nation teaching her versions of religion and women how to submit and how to break your children to form them into great little soldiers for God. So that was my upbringing. And as a girl, you were quiet. You were taught not to need anything. You were taught not to, just to kind of blend in and to serve. And I wasn't so great at serving, but I sure could become invisible and blend in, especially when it came to my brothers. They were cruel, and they were very, very competitive to the point where it was really ugly. And to this day, I don't play games. I don't play board games or because that's over for me. But there was nothing that I could say or do as a child that could ever get my needs or my opinions out unless it was in some big meltdown or a secret letter I wrote and then they kind of read the letter. It was the weirdest thing, but I was a body that they were caring for. And there were my older sister has juvenile diabetes. There were needs in our family. And even then, she was treated how I now know is very neglected and pretty abusive in her need for help. My parents, let me just say this, I love my parents. And I know that they did the best they can, and they still are doing the best they can, but they are working with limited truths. They are working, they're not quite ones to think that they need to heal of anything. And they are wounded, and they are carrying that and passing it along. And that's not something that I want. So, there you go on that one. I kind of was different than the other kids. I liked nature. I liked gardens and plants. And my other siblings liked business and science, like medical science and writing and linguistics. And so I kind of took the earthy route. Hence, gardening. Murder's wrong. Sometimes. Anyway, but a quiet voice. And I learned how to be invisible as a kid. In the classroom, at home, at church. As a woman, I had my role in the place that I would need to go. Fast forward. Now I'm an adult. I married a man that I fell for the con. I married a big, loud man. I know. It was a mix that nobody ever could understand, and there's a reason why. It should have never happened. But I needed that to get out. Sadly. So, as we move forward, I'm married to this man. He does become abusive, extremely so, and we will just bookmark that. We find a church in a little town in Washington State, and it was smaller, like 500 people, but it hit all the marks that I was taught to look for in a church. This was a non-denominational church, so they had no accountability with anyone else. They get to make their own rules. As time went on, we had our children and our friend group. I was told who could be my friends. And they were my friends. And our kids kind of grew up next to each other. I was the one that taught women's Bible studies, helped with them all. I did all the women's stuff, and would speak occasionally. Of course, I would need a microphone, but I was that person. If the men in the church who were, priests, leaders, if they couldn't handle a woman, they would ask me to go talk to her. And I was good at getting them to fall back in line. Simply because I really did care about them, and sadly I really believed what I was saying. If you know, you know. Forgive me. Anyway, I started to notice that when we were in groups, I loved to pray. I loved to meditate, what I come to know as meditate, but I would pray for hours on end to that God, or read the holy books and just soak in all of the information, and that's what I would go with. Now, the thing is, when we would meet with the adults, we could be talking about anything, but if I started to chime in my opinion, my voice being what it is, I was always spoken over. Like, I'd be talking like this, and they would start talking louder around me until I stopped talking. And part of me didn't think that they meant to do that, that it was just, maybe I twisted, I don't even know. But what I do know now is that it was prescribed, it was by design. Because women, who am I to tell them what is right or wrong? I was just a woman. Well, there's more to that story. But it really occurred to me one night. We had a barbecue. We had a big house on a lake with all the toys, and everyone liked to come to our house because they could go swimming in the lake, go on the boat, all of the things. And typically I would get the food ready, barbecue, chip, all the stuff. And the moms would kind of like linger around and be like, helping, but just talking and sitting around. And the dads, the men, would be sitting around drinking beer, talking about their stuff. As long as they had food and drink, they're fine. So I remember sitting there thinking, I want to go join their conversation. They're talking about some interesting stuff, and I would love to chat. Like, I want to sit and listen to them, and I also want to converse. I want to have intelligent conversation, because with the certain women that I was assigned to, what I know now is that they're not very intelligent. They just didn't care to talk about intelligent things. They liked the place that they were in, they liked the roles that they had, and they liked the authority within those roles they had, because all of these couples were coming into leadership positions within that cult. So it was in their best interest to just hold the line, because they're bossing up, they're ranking, they're coming up the line as the elders are kind of like going out. Anyway, so I'm sitting there at this dinner, and I got the kids, started a movie, got all the food out, all the food done, went to sit out at the table to be part of this conversation. And at this particular dinner, I had a neighbor helping me, because it was a big dinner I was making, and I needed an extra hand. The women coming had their children, and they weren't able to help me, so I had a neighbor come and help me. Well, it didn't occur to me until I asked the neighbor, hey, could you just kind of watch the kids? I really want to jump in on this conversation. And we weren't too far away from each other. I sit down at the table, and the men are talking. And it's interesting. They're talking about something that was taught in the Bible and that they're learning. And so I start chiming in, because I know exactly that. I know what's going on. I know this. And I have ideas and thoughts, and it's really exciting. And they just kept getting louder and louder and louder and talking over me. And I realized they're actively silencing me. This is not an accident. So I would drop it and then try it again, and the same thing would happen. finally I got frustrated and I got up and I went to the kitchen, and my best friend now, who was the neighbor, looked at me kind of horrified. She was single and she was a friend of ours. She was friends with both my ex-husband and myself at that time, and was just like, they didn't let you get even a word in edgewise. Nope. And when I talked to my ex later that night about my frustration, that I really just wanted to be part of the conversation, that was shut down too. So it wasn't too long after that I started to break away. And in the original reason I started to break away was violence. I knew that at one point he would not resuscitate me again, and I would stay dead. And I realized that was not okay, that my children needed a mother, and my boys needed to know this is not how men act, and my daughters needed to know that this is not how women are to be treated, ever. And that's what caused me to start to, instead of speaking up, starting to move forward and take a stand. And that stand consisted of a protection order and all of the things that then followed that we're going to be talking about later. But the quiet voice was born, and I knew that there was something special about my story. There was something that needed to be told. There's many aspects to it that I know I could have related to, and I'm hoping that some of you can, because it is a hard journey, and it's not one that I would ever want anyone to have to go through. But if you are in a Christian, specifically fundamentalistic, you need to get out. It's a cult. There's no splitting hairs on this. It is a cult. And I would say get out of all religion, all of it, because unless it does something to help you and benefit your life as a story, then you can go, but then go for it. But it is not to be worshipped. It is not a God thing. It isn't. And I realized that what I believed at one point was all a lie. It took me a while, and it took some severe betrayals and just crushing lies that I believed to get me to the point where I realized this is a lie and I need to stop. I cannot be part of that, because I'm someone that I really value my integrity, and I am an honest person, always have been. I'm not going to be part of that facade, and I'm not going to be part of that abuse. And I began to see things differently when I started to see that, when I saw that the men were actively silencing me. And when I would speak up later on, they would pull me apart, pull me side to the side and give me lectures, each man, as if I was their child, and they needed to chastise me to be better and to pay better attention and to be more respectful. That was the word, respectful. But there was nothing about caring for me. There was nothing about providing, or, I have an idea, maybe not suffocating and beating your wife, because I never fought back. So none of that was, they didn't care about that. They knew that my ex-husband was violent to me, and they covered it up. And we'll talk about that too, and how these cults do that. But that's when the quiet voice was born. I started a blog as I was going through these feelings. And keep in mind, at this time, I was still in the religion. I was still, I was leaving that cult, I was looking for something similar in just another, just transferring it to just another culty church or community. Fortunately, I was kept out of that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the quiet voice, that's me. Hopefully, you can hear me, and hopefully you can encourage someone else that needs to know that their voice, while quiet and while silenced by some, is important, and it needs to be heard. Love you. Bye.